International Women's Day 2023 and welcome to a special edition of our FarmHer interview segment. I am your host, Lorian Scarlett, and I am also the Gender Equality Officer for the Sustainable Agriculture in the Caribbean Project, SAC, here in Jamaica. Now, International Women's Day is about highlighting, acknowledging, and celebrating women's and girls' contribution and achievement to national development and gender equality. The day also reflects on the women and girls breaking barriers worldwide and also about assessing strategic ways to advance gender equality. This is in alignment with the SAC's overall mission, which seeks to increase the economic prosperity of women and youth in the agricultural sector. Now, the theme for International Women's Day 2023 is digital. Innovation and technology for gender equality. Today, we'll be interviewing a phenomenal woman in the agricultural sector. She is a graduate of the College of Agriculture, Science and Education, the farm manager at the Monegue Collegue, and she's also a farmer. Please make welcome to the FarmHer hot seat, Miss Chenille Humes. So we know everyone has a FarmHer story. So I want to find out from you today, Chenille. What spurred your interest into going into the agricultural sector?
Well, like many other young persons out there, my story is no different. I started with my grandparents being farmers, so I was exposed a little bit at a younger age. But my interest in agriculture basically spurred when I was in high school. I participated in agricultural competitions that were implemented by the Jamaica 4-H clubs. And then from there, I went to the College of Agriculture, Science and Education, where I majored in plant science. So it's a mixture of everything, really. And also, as a student of CASE, I was privileged to be a part of a group of 15 persons who were sent to Israel to study advanced agriculture. So that really cemented everything in. And here I am today.
Now we know that you are the farm manager here at the Monegue Collegue. I just want to find out what exactly does that job entail? Or what are exactly your daily functions?
Well, my job is really not set in stone. It really is dependent on what we have happening on the farm. For example, we have animal production as well as crop production. So we have chickens and as well as a goat unit. So sometimes it's a bit of both, depending on what's happening. We might have health problems that we need to take care of, as well as I'm an assistant lecturer here. And so some days of the week I have to teach classes. I teach the agricultural students as well as the environmental studies students. So it's not really a definite, it really is about what we have to do, the projects that we have to undertake, and really I go where I am needed. So
excellent, I love that. Versatile. So definitely love to hear some high points and some, for example, successes that you have basically experienced in the agricultural sector.
Well, as I said before, I'm an assistant lecturer here, and I teach agricultural science and environmental studies. And so sometimes it is always a joy when you're in the classroom and you're teaching the students something and they are so interested in it. So much so that one of my students from our lessons, she actually started her own backyard farming, which I'm very proud of. So it's always hearing these success stories that kind of encourages me to continue to do what I do, as well as a farmer. And as a farm manager, we have animals that we take care of daily, and it's always a joy to see how healthy they are, as well as the food that we produce for the college population and the wider community. We know that we're giving people premium quality and we can stand behind the production that we have here. So really, those were my high points that I take away from each day, because I know that I'm doing something good and people can benefit from what I'm doing.
So how do you see yourself breaking the bias in the agricultural sector?
As I said before, we have to work twice as hard as women in agriculture than our male friends out there, because the expectation is that a male can do things better and they're better at agricultural production. So we have to ensure that whatever we do, our work is speaking for ourselves. For example, if it is animal production we're doing, I have to ensure that the expectation is met. the animals are being fed and they're taken care of, and we're achieving greater outputs than those farms out there that are run by males, because in some cases you would see that it's a competition, right? And you'd see different farms competing against other farms, and then people will come and look at a female run farm and see what we're doing. So we have to ensure that we have everything down pat and we're achieving our output, and we're doing so in a sustainable way. So what we do to break that bias is to always ensure that we put out our best and we're achieving much more than is expected.
And you're yielding.
Oh my goodness, we are.
Excellent. Now let me ask you, the theme for International Women's Day 2023 is digital innovation and technology for gender equality. Now, what are some of the innovations or technologies that have been implemented on this farm, in your position as farm manager, and how do you see any of these technologies or innovations contributing to gender equality?
Well, we have implemented a number of technological inputs on our farm. We know that climate change is really one of our biggest threats to agriculture. Exactly. So what we do is, in areas like Monegue where we are having increased sunlight, we have implemented solar systems on different rooftops across the campus. So we are garnering that energy to use for electricity on the farm. In terms of crop production, we have up our production in the greenhouse in that we've implemented a containerized farming technique. We are emulating the earthbox system that has been used right around the world to achieve food production. So essentially what this containerized system will do is to allow us to control the amount of water that we are putting into each system. In terms of the fact that we have drought-like conditions now, we want to highlight some of the things that we're putting in place to deal with or to adapt to such conditions. So what it is that these systems, we only add water to these buckets maybe 1 or 2 times for the week, and that is enough for the plants to supplement themselves, especially now in cases where they're flowering and they're fruiting. In some cases they're using more water. So before, we normally just water the plants like maybe once or 2 times for the week. Now we're watering it maybe like 3 times because of the amount of water that they're utilizing. So basically what we have here is a grow system that we're trying to emulate called the earthbox system. And in this way, we're utilizing materials that are readily available to us. In terms of the 5-gallon buckets, we use also a regular drinking cup. We do use the regular black garbage bags. And what we do is to provide such a system where we give the plants all that it needs to sustain itself. And now that we're having drought-like conditions where we're really not getting much rain here in Monegue, we have to adapt to our environment. And in doing so, this system helps us to reduce the amount of water that we're using, right? And we don't have any wastage because all that water will be there for the plants to just take what it needs whenever it needs. So what we do is that when we just transplant these plants into the grow bucket system, we basically fill it up with water, and then we don't have to replenish that water until maybe twice for the week or so. But now we have to go in and we have to put in more water in there because the plants are flowering and they're fruiting, so they're utilizing more water. So we just going in the mornings and make sure we top up each bucket from the hose that you see there. And as you can see, the plants are doing immaculately well. We also include systems the natural way because we want to ensure that we're doing things organically. So we do not introduce anything synthetic agrochemicals. So for our fertilizers, we only use organic matter, which is we get from the chicken manure and the goat manure, and we turn that into compost tea, and that is what we use to nourish our plants. And so you can see that they're looking very well. Why we use the black plastic bag is basically to discourage algae growth as well as to discourage weeds. If you can see on the trellising strings, you would see that we have yellow sticky tapes, And these tapes basically helps us to control the pest population in the greenhouse. And so because we know that certain insects gravitate towards the color yellow, we utilize the yellow sticky traps in most of the cases. These plants are considered indeterminate varieties of tomatoes. So what we do, what does that mean? Is that they will continuously grow throughout their lifetime, and all we have to do is to make sure that we trellis them in such a way that they're growing and they're producing, and at the same time when we're ready, they will die whenever they feel like they want to die. But until then, they'll be giving us maximum yield because we are producing everything that they want in terms of water, in terms of nutrition, in terms of comfort on a whole, because if your plants are not comfortable, you will not really get anything much out of them. And so, as you can see, we have tomatoes growing in these buckets. You can put sweet peppers in them. I've seen persons grow corn. I've seen persons grow leafy vegetables. I've seen persons grow basils. We are also putting in marigolds as a natural insect repellent inside this greenhouse to discourage pest population as well.
So essentially what it is that we're going to need is our 5-gallon buckets. We need a drinking cup and the bucket cover, right? So all we do is to punch some holes in the cup, and we're going to be punching a hole here as well. It is 4 inches away from the base. We punch the hole here. This is be our escape for the water. And so now we're just gonna put the cup in the bucket, and for the bucket cover all we do is to cut out the inner portion of it just like this, and then we punch holes in it so that the water can seep up through it into the substrate. And we're just gonna put this over the cup that is inside. So now you have your base, and all you do now is that substrate that is there is a mix of vermiculite, we have perlite, and we have soil as well as the compost, and we just mix it to make a proportional ration, and we fill this up with the soil. Once we fill it up and we transplant our plants in, all we do is to take the cover, the remaining cover of this, and this is just a regular piece of garbage bag. We put it in and we just snap this part on so it will hold it down, and that's the entire system. When we're going in to feed the plants, when they're like they are 2 after transplant, we feed from here because the roots are not down here as well, so we feed from top. But after a week of transplant, we start feeding from the hole that was punched here. So that's where we would put the water in. So that way the water is always below, and it will encourage the roots to go down and suck up the water from down below. That will encourage deep root system, and it will not, and that will encourage the plant to have strong anchorage system as well. And because where the water is below, you will not find algae growth on top of your soil, because we have the black plastic bag that will discourage algae growth, and it will also discourage weed growth as well. So essentially this is what our system would look like. Should look, we have fruits, right, that are coming in, and these are the flowers that you would see right throughout the plant, and the fruit. Once we have pollination, then we have fruits coming in. As you can see, we don't have any weed, any insect population that we can see. And of course, this is where the water will be, right? Okay. Right, so this is where we'll put in the hose, and it will fill up the water system, and the plants will only take what it needs. When we're feeding the plants with the compost tea, this is where we would pour the compost tea here, because it will essentially go down, absorb into the soil substrate that is here. And as we said, this plastic mulch just encourages no algae growth, and it discourages also the weed growth as well. And this is where we have the trellising system going all the way up, and we have it on the hooks, so it anchors the plant and it keeps the plant sturdy. So now you can see that it is bending and winding, right, because it's staying attached to this trellising wire. And majority of the flowers, the plants that are here, they're flowering already. And we have the other sticky traps that we use for capturing the insect population, right, that we don't want. So any pest or anything that likes the color yellow, they'll directly go to this and they don't go towards the plants. So we encourage them to stay up here and not go down to the plant. So as you can see, these stems are so thick. A lot of persons are asking, how is it that we have plants so thick? They've never seen plants this thick before, and we don't use any synthetic fertilizers, just the compost tea that we made from the organic manure.
In terms of looking at the containers, right? In terms of for women, it'd be much easier for them to be able to move them around, especially when it comes down to backyard farming, etc. Right?
Yes, of course. As we said, it's something that is designed with all genders in question, because we don't want something that is heavy for persons to be hurting themselves. We still take health seriously, so we do encourage for you to use whatever containers that you have, whether it's going to be a paint pan or a juice jug or whatever it is that you have in your space. This system is so designed that you can use whatever you have to achieve the same output that we are doing here. And it is always a good thing when you can just look in your kitchen or look in your household and find these things instead of going out there to buy all these things for your system.
Are there any recommendations that you'd give to organizations as well as individuals as to how they can actually support more women to succeed in the agricultural sector?
Yeah, as I said before, a lot of persons don't support the female farmers, and so we encourage them to buy from our local female farmers, in that you help them to encourage themselves to wanting to do more and to increase their production, because when we realize that we're producing but nobody is buying from us, it really is discouraging. And so we encourage persons to support the local women, as well as we encourage the government to put in place certain attractive incentives for more young persons to want to come into agriculture, because when you look at the off-farm inputs like the fertilizers and the agrochemicals, they are very expensive. And so we want for the government to put strategies in place that we can acquire these off-farm inputs at a much more affordable rate. We also look at what is happening in our society, and we realize that there is not much skill-based training opportunities for women. And so if we implement some of these strategies to ensure that we are getting quality training and skill-based training for women to take part of, it will encourage more young persons. Because remember, we want to encourage young persons to come into agriculture, right? Because they are the future. And so if we do not put these things in place from time to time, we won't have much young persons in the agricultural sector. So I think some of these things are some of the recommendations that myself and some of my peers will share. And if you should look at other persons out there, they'll tell you the same thing, right? These are the things that we are having an issue with, as well as we want for us to feel included in everything that is happening. We don't want to see agriculture as gender-based in that way, where we're saying, okay, males will do this and the females will do that. We want to be included. So offering inclusion programs will also encourage more young persons to come into agriculture, especially women.
Beautifully said. Now, last words. What words of encouragement or advice would you give to young women as well as women who are already in the sector to basically push them more to say, you know, I want to be involved, I want to enter into the sector?
It is a struggle for us as women daily in the agricultural sector, and there are times when I have to encourage myself to tell myself that I'm doing the best I can, to tell myself that I will always improve on what I'm doing. And so I encourage other women in agriculture to encourage yourself to know and to see that you are doing the best you can, and to always look for opportunities and ways to better yourself, because the reality is that people will always judge us for our gender. But you can either sit down and roll over, or you accept the challenge and you prove yourself and you prove your worth. So always ensure that you're doing your best, and always ensure that you encourage yourself, because sometimes people will not be out there to encourage you. So encourage yourself as you go along and make your best better.